here at Levi's Stadium. That is because the Christmas party is coming up tonight, or at least somebody's Christmas party is coming up tonight here in the lounge at Levi's. But that means that the 49ers update is just going to happen with a little bit of commotion around. So hopefully the mic does its job. Got an injury report for you ahead of the game against the Bears. Then we're going to talk a little bit about Chicago. Caleb Williams, their rookie quarterback, has been sacked 49 times this season. The second most sacked QB in the NFL has been sacked 41 times. So 8 more sacks for Caleb Williams this season than the second most sacked quarterback. And his offensive line, Chicago's O-line, actually ranks number 6 in PFF pass block grade. So should be some sack opportunities for San Francisco. The reason I open with that is because Nick Bosa is not firmly ruled out for the 49ers. He is doubtful. We expected him to be ruled out. So this is a surprise with Nick Bosa, and it does mean that he has made some progress as he tries to return from his oblique injury. Now, he's still ruled as doubtful, but that does mean, and he did not practice this week, but that does mean that his workload did increase this week. He was able to make some progress as he does try to return from that oblique injury for the 49ers against the Bears on Sunday. And Caleb Williams is a guy that has held on to the football for too long, has not gone through his progressions fast enough, and even though his offensive line has been solid, he has taken all those sacks. So maybe some opportunities for Nick Bosa if he is able to overcome the odds and play on Sunday. Even if he isn't, well, if the 49ers defense can't slow down Caleb Williams, then the problems are very, very great. And I think the problems are great for this 49ers defense. You could talk about the missing personnel all you want for San Francisco, but even if Bosa is out, they shouldn't be the second worst defense in the league. I get that they've got guys like Sam Okawanu, who are relatively inexperienced at the NFL level, playing along that defensive line. Evan Anderson there. I get that Devondre Campbell, who's past his prime, is at one of the linebacker positions, but there's still talent out on that field for the 49ers, right? Their top draft pick from the 2023 cycle, Jair Brown, is one of the players who's struggling the most on defense. They need to be able to find a way to patch things together. I think one of the catch-22s that the 49ers find themselves in is that Nick Sorensen was promoted to defensive coordinator to run the 49ers system of old. The system of old, the wide 9 and the cover 3, what the 49ers have run the most, is reliant on the horses being there, right? You need Nick Bosa. You need the pass rush to work on islands as it is. It's stretched out in that wide 9. You need the linebackers to cover a lot of ground, and Fred Warner has a broken ankle. So when the horses aren't there to execute what Nick Sorensen has been tasked at coordinating, it looks a lot worse. But when that happens, you need to manufacture pressure. You need to find a way to make things work out of structure. And as a new coordinator, Nick Sorensen has struggled to do that. The 49ers blitz rate is one of the lowest in the NFL, which it has been consistently throughout the course of the Robert Saleh, DeMeco Ryans, and now the Nick Sorensen era. I get Steve Wilkes blitzed a little bit more last year, but that was a departure from tendency. The problem is that the blitzes have not been effective for the 49ers. They haven't done a good job picking up the slack that they need to pick up. So how's that going to go against the Bears? I think that's the big question on everybody's mind this weekend. The 49ers defense needs to acquit itself better than it has over the past 2 weeks, where the DVOA and the EPA has been number 31 out of 32 teams. The only team that's been worse than the 49ers defensively over the past 2 weeks has been the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are getting great quarterback play from Joe Burrow, yet they're 4-8. I think you could put 2 and 2 together and understand why, because their defense has been bottom barrel. The 49ers have been getting solid quarterback play from Brock Purdy, yet they're 5-7. I think it's not too hard to piece together why. It's a team sport, right? The defense has been languishing for San Francisco. So I'm most curious this game to see if the 49ers can actually put some clamps down on an opposing offense that hasn't been good. The Bears are number 25 in pass offense and number 19 in run offense EPA. Caleb Williams has been sacked way too many times. It's just not a high-functioning offense because the QB, who was playing so much out of structure in college, has been doing similar things. He hasn't been playing on time in the NFL. When you start doing that in the NFL, you're not going to be able to bail yourself out the way that Caleb Williams did at USC. This is why I was skeptical on him as a prospect. And if the 49ers manage to make him look good consistently this week, well, then the structural issues of the 49ers defense are even greater than what they have been. And they've been pretty damn bad over the past 2 weeks against the Packers and the Buffalo Bills. Anyway, Nick Bosa, doubtful. That is the surprise. We expected Nick Bosa to be listed as out after he didn't practice, but he is doubtful, so there is a slim chance that he's going to play for the 49ers against Chicago. Trent Williams, as expected, is out for San Francisco. Jordan Mason, as expected, is out with the high ankle sprain. Kyle Shanahan said that an IR move is coming for Jordan Mason earlier this week. Probably going to come tomorrow when the 49ers make some roster moves. I have no answer as to why that hasn't happened yet. That is a little confusing to me, but maybe we'll have an answer tomorrow once the roster moves do come through for the 49ers. Dre Greenlaw, not going to return this week. We did not expect that. We don't expect it on Thursday against the Rams either. I would expect a Greenlaw return to the playing field to happen against the Miami Dolphins right before Christmas. George Odom has also been ruled out with a knee injury. That happened at practice on Thursday. He was added to the practice report late, so the 49ers will be down their top special teams tackler. Questionable for the 49ers, Aaron Banks, concussion, but he has not progressed through the protocol enough to practice all week. So Ben Barch will almost certainly make his second start with the 49ers at left guard. He was good last week. I asked Kyle Shanahan about it. Shanahan agreed. Ben Barch impressed him last week. And the 49ers, they brought him in last year. And I keep on going back to this because he had dislocated his knee with Jacksonville back in 2022. I don't think Barch was 100% back to full strength yet last year. I mean, how could you be? He was coming off of a dislocated knee. Now he definitely is, and he looks solid. And if we talk about building blocks, well, the 49ers in this game are going to be operating against the Bears defense that's been good, but they've struggled a little bit against the run. And the 49ers had delivered their best run blocking performance of the year against the Buffalo Bills with Ben Barch in that lineup. By the way, again, Christmas party getting set up here at Levi's Stadium, so there's loud construction, forklift beeping. There's a lot going on around me. I tried to back into a little bit of a corner here. Hopefully the mic is doing its job so we could minimize the commotion around me. But we're talking about Ben Barch right now. He is on track to get his second start with the 49ers. Talanoa Hufanga is questionable for this game, which means that he might get the 49ers' last roster spot, which we'll see Jordan Mason go to IR for him if Talanoa Hufanga is available to be activated from injured reserve to play with the club. I don't know. I guess the 49ers wanted to make the move in tandem if that is indeed the plan. So if they do make those two moves in tandem, then we're going to see both of them tomorrow at around 1 p.m. for the 49ers. Hufanga activated and Jordan Mason to IR. I still wouldn't have an answer for why the 49ers didn't put Mason on IR earlier, other than, well, they probably want to make those two moves in tandem. Demetrius Flanagan-Foles, linebacker, special teams player for the 49ers, he is questionable with a knee injury. Today, Kyle Shanahan was, I thought, exceptionally reflective about the 49ers season. He pointed out that the plan, and this is something that we've discussed strategy-wise on the channel the whole time, I thought it was obvious from afar. 49ers wanted to enter the games at Green Bay and Buffalo at 8-2 so that they could absorb losses in those two really tough games. The problem is that they blew division contests in the fourth quarter against the Rams in Week 3, against the Arizona Cardinals in Week 5, and against the Seattle Seahawks in Week 10. If the 49ers had won those three games, they would enter 8-2 instead of 5-5 into their recent two-game road stretch. So Shanahan said that the team wasn't fully where he wanted it to be exiting training camp, but that almost always is the case. You're never who you want to be in September, and you want to grow into the season. The problem with what happened to the 49ers this year is that they lost the games that they should have won over the first 10 weeks, which gave them a very shrinking, if not non-existent, margin for error. So the 49ers, the margin for error dwindled with the losses to the Rams, to the Cardinals, and to the Seattle Seahawks, all games they should have won. And that means that they entered really tough sledding against the Green Bay Packers and against the Buffalo Bills without that gap that they wanted, without that margin for error that they wanted. And now they find themselves where they find themselves, and that's at 5-7 with probably less than a 10% chance to make the postseason. So they're going to have to find a way to either dig themselves out of it with a lot of help from opposing teams, or they're going to have to find a way to make December productive, even if it doesn't ultimately yield a playoff run in January. And the latter is the more likely path for the 49ers. Just because 2024 won't end in the postseason doesn't mean all is lost. That's sometimes how football works. That's how it's played out for the 49ers this year. They're going to have to find a way to carry over any positive momentum that they can build into 2025. Deommodore Lenoir, by the way, is going to be back on Sunday. No injury designation for him today. Last week, he was dealing with that bone bruise in his knee. He is back at practice, and he's not even listed as questionable for this game. So the secondary should be in a stronger place for the 49ers than it was last week against the Buffalo Bills. Brock Purdy also spoke today. Brock Purdy, North Carolina hurricane relief is going to be his my cause, my cleats. So keep an eye out for Brock Purdy's cleats. They're going to be specially decorated for the game on Sunday. Obviously, a lot of help still needed in that North Carolina area. And Brock Purdy has announced, and he has the 49ers up on their Instagram, have shown his cleats for the relief in that area. Purdy reflected on the 49ers season, I think, in a similar way to Kyle Shanahan, except he took maybe even a little bit of a bigger picture approach, and he said, this is when leadership really shines through. How do you act when things in a season have not gone according to the specific plan? And the 49ers, yes, they did want to be 8-2 entering those games against Green Bay and Buffalo. They weren't 8-2, they were 5-5. They dropped those two games. How does Purdy lead this team? He said, I think I'm the right man for the job, leading the team through adversity through these last 5 games. Now, obviously, not only have they lost the games against the Packers and the Bills to put themselves into an even worse position as far as the playoff chase goes, but they've lost Christian McCaffrey. That on top of other injuries. They don't have Trent Williams right now. They're going to have to find a way to fight an uphill battle against these last 5 teams, and focus is always going to go back to the quarterback position in that case. Remember when Jimmy Garoppolo came in 2017? It was actually Chicago, the first game of December. This is the second game of December, but it was the first game of December with 5 to play. Jimmy Garoppolo came in, started for the 49ers, and they went 5-0. That was a team that was 1-10 at the time. Helped elevate the play of everybody around them. Now, the trajectory of the 49ers at the time, the assignment at the time was very different. They were still trying to build the program. There was less pressure on them. They were already eliminated from playoff contention at the time. But the point remains very similar in that they were able to carry momentum from 2017 into the future. And by 2019, they were in the Super Bowl. So I think Brock Purdy is trying to mentally reframe things in a very similar way. Yeah, they're still alive for the playoffs, but it's more about a 1 week at a time thing. Try to build momentum 1 game at a time so that the whole operation finds a more cohesive way forward. You saw a couple teams who were playing cohesively last night in the Lions and the Packers. Both of them were flawed. Neither was playing great defense, but I think you saw cohesive play out on the football field, and it was starting with the offenses of both teams. That's what Purdy is tasking himself with moving forward. Remember, he is still number 7 in QBR. So Brock Purdy has still been playing good football this year. A lot of people are not evaluating this correctly, and they're viewing the whole team as this entity where if the team is losing, then every single piece of the team is performing poorly, and that's just not the case. The 49ers still have a quarterback who's been playing well. The team around him has struggled, but that also leaves them open to the possibility of the quarterback with some adjustments around him, play calling wise. Obviously, if the defense plays better than they have as a bottom barrel unit over the past 2 weeks, things can start in a complementary way turning around for the 49ers, and that's how they can build some momentum through December. Now, how are they going to do that against the Chicago Bears? Well, Chicago plays a lot of cover 3 zone defense. I think they're going to be shifting more into man, just like all teams have against the 49ers, because now they don't have Christian McCaffrey. They haven't had Brandon Ayuk for most of this season. When a team like the 49ers loses 2 of its best weapons against man coverage, you can expect defenses to play more man coverage against them. And the 49ers have averaged the least separation at the time of reception or attempt in the entire NFL. When that is the case, the opposing defenses are going to, I think, do everything they can to stop the 49ers run game, which obviously doesn't have Christian McCaffrey or Jordan Mason anymore. That means they're going to stack the box, and they're going to play a lot of island man coverage on the back end. So this, is, to me, is a huge game for somebody like Ricky Pearsall, because Jalen Johnson out of Fresno, by the way, so shout out to Central High School in Fresno, Jalen Johnson is probably going to man up Juwan Jennings, who's the ex-receiver a lot of the time. There, in that situation, you're going to see Deebo Samuel, who obviously isn't a standard Z. Deebo Samuel is more of a bulldozer than anything. We know separation is not the strong suit of Deebo Samuel. He's the kind of guy that you want to get the ball on screen passes. So Ricky Pearsall is going to be the natural counterbalance for the 49ers to defeat some of that man coverage. And when that's the case, the 49ers receiving core will be under a bigger spotlight than maybe at any other point this season. And it's going to have to happen against the Bears, who also rush Montez Sweat off the edge without Trent Williams for the 49ers. Big challenge for San Francisco's offense with a lot of these backups, and for Brock Purdy and for the rookie Ricky Pearsall and for George Kittle, who's the big man coverage beater for San Francisco. But anytime it's a big challenge for all those guys, it's the guy at the top of the food chain that we have to look at most closely, and that's Kyle Shanahan. I'm going to go back to what I've emphasized all week long with Shanahan, or maybe all season long with Kyle Shanahan. He's got to return to the bread and butter plays for both Brock Purdy and Deebo Samuel. 49ers need to start throwing more screen passes in this football game. They threw 7 last week, which led the NFL, but they entered the game having thrown the fewest screens. All the data that I've presented to you has shown that the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan have not made the job easy for Brock Purdy. The easy button just hasn't been there at a consistent level. Fewest screens in the NFL attempted entering Buffalo. Well, it's going to be good weather now, so they need to start throwing some screen passes and some short layups, even in 66 degrees and sunshine on Sunday. Because the way that the Bears play pass defense with the Jalen Johnson on the back end, with good safeties, I think, on this team as well. Kevin Byard is now on the Bears. I think that you have to play into your strengths if you're the 49ers. Also, when you're throwing shorter, you don't need the quarterback, theoretically, to be holding onto the ball as long. And without Trent Williams, I know that Jalen Moore has played really well, but Montez Sweat can get after the QB. So, in a way, this is going to be I don't want to say the ultimate test, but a signature test of how effectively Kyle Shanahan, who hasn't been at his best this year, can scheme back to basics. That's the key for the 49ers. All right, that's the commotion around me here for the party is building up, so I'm going to get out of their way. That's the update on San Francisco. Nick Bosa expected to be back for the 49ers. Oh, no, Nick Bosa doubtful. Nick Bosa expected to be back at some point for the 49ers this year. Even if he's not back, Caleb Williams has been sacked 49 times this season, the most in the NFL. So 49ers need to get after it defensively against the Bears, and the 49ers definitely need to make sure that sack number stays up for Caleb Williams. If they can't do that, and if they can't stop Chicago's run game, which obviously is a prerequisite to getting after the quarterback, well, then this defense is even in worse straits than we thought they were leaving Buffalo, and that was already pretty damn bad there. All right, those are your keys for the 49ers. There's your injury report. I'm going to talk to you guys very, very soon.